What's up, guys? Welcome to an all-new episode of Convos on the Pedicab. I'm here with jiu-jitsu practitioner, graphic designer. What else are you, Jewel?
Those are the two main things.
Jiu-jitsu practitioner and graphic designer, Jewel Broussard. Before we get started, I'm pleased to announce that we have our first sponsor, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu in Austin, Texas, 10PATX. If you want to get woke and get better at jiu-jitsu at the same time, come to 10th Planet. Especially right now with all the civil unrest that's going on, there's no better time than now to learn how to effectively defend yourself with the political climate that we're in. You know, it's a phenomenal spot. We're very tolerant of all different types of people, of all orientations, of all ideas, of all political ideologies. Come to 10th Planet. It's in Austin, Texas. It's between 35 and 71. So yeah, 10PATX, that's where it's at. It's an awesome training environment. They're awesome people. It's right across the street from On It. You get a bunch of phenomenal supplements there. Optimize yourself. Anyway, we got our first guest. We got Jewel Broussard, and I'm so happy that you can make it. So, Jewel, before we get started, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your little journey and what brought you here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. So I moved back to Austin in 2016. I went to UT for a little bit, kind of enjoyed the social life too hard, and then I really wanted to finish school, so I went to a smaller school in Corpus, but graduated, came back to Austin.
What school?
TAMI CC, Texas A&M Corpus.
Cool.
And while I was there, I studied design. I ended up graduating with a psych degree, but I kind of just wanted to work and then do art. And I started jiu-jitsu, and it was like fulfilling a lot of like passionate voids, like creative voids. I was getting, an energy release. I was meeting friends. And that satisfaction in that caused me to kind of dump the traditional 9 to 5 because I don't want to work just to maybe save my passion for after work. I want my passion and my work to be blended together. So that's where we got started.
No, I understand. How long have you been training for?
Very intermittently for 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And where are you training? Where are you training now?
Insight BJJ, which is in Bastrop under Alex Henley.
Cool. I know Alex. Alex is an awesome person, and his son is a beast. His son's a little monster.
Yes, Grayson
Holy
is like he's a savage.
I gotta talk to him and see if he can come on.
Absolutely.
I'm sure he'll be down.
He would love to.
Yeah, that'd be great. I gotta talk to Grayson and see what the deal is. Anyway, we gotta talk about jiu-jitsu and we gotta talk about the importance of it. Mm-hmm. Because like I said earlier, that civil unrest it's pretty bad right now.
Yeah.
And right now it feels like there's like kind of a calm before a storm.
Mm-hmm.
But things could get pretty heated. And they already are getting really heated depending on where you are on the map. So far, it's been okay in Austin. Mm-hmm. There's certain things that we need to do better about. Like, you're seeing a lot more like violent crime and a lot more break-ins because of how they defunded APD.
Yeah.
That's something you got to be concerned about. But, hey, it's all the more reason to train and learn jiu-jitsu. But what's it like being a female in the jiu-jitsu gym? Like, what's that experience been like for you?
I came into jiu-jitsu from tennis, and that's co-ed, so I'm used to having a male doubles partner. I'm used to a merit-based sport, right? And jiu-jitsu is exactly the same. So when it comes to women and men training together, I really have, in the course of 4 years, I've had so few complaints. Like, I really think it's good to train against a man if you're a woman so that you get used to someone with, like, body strength opposing you, as opposed to a self-defense class, no offense to those, where you go and it's all women standing up yelling, don't take my purse and kicking something. Like, you need to, if you want to feel protected and feel safe sleeping at night when you're a woman, because I started when I was living by myself, I think it's an amazing tool, like absolutely amazing. And the men in the sport are just like super respectful. You would think you'd walk in and they'd be like, no, I don't want to roll with a girl, but they like challenge you in a really good way. So
I agree. And one thing that I got to get better at is I don't roll with enough females. Mm-hmm. But I do know for a fact from what other people tell me, and just in general when I do roll with girls, like it makes your technique a lot better. Yeah. Because you have to only use technique when you're rolling with chicks. Like you can't just use brute strength against a girl who's like 40 pounds lighter than you, because A, you look like a dick. Yeah. And B, it doesn't really help you get better.
No, it's not going to.
But you also have to use some strength and be a grown man to help make your partner grow too.
Yeah,
so
it's
there's
the
got to be like
balance
there's got to be a balance, because if you go like too easy, it's insulting to your training partner.
Yes.
And if you go like too hard, you're a fucking asshole. So it actually is good to roll with chicks, because it makes you more aware of your body, and it makes you more aware of how you move, I think. And I think that a lot of people don't really understand that, and they're not as aware of the importance of like having female training partners at the gym.
Yeah, it's really just don't be patronizing, and everyone really gets along super well.
Yeah,
Like,
it makes you better at having like boy-girl relationships just in general.
Yeah.
You know, like almost every guy I train with too, like every guy I know who's like single that I train with, goes out, whenever they go out, like they have no problems like meeting people.
No.
Like they do phenomenal, and there's no real
socially
effort.
gifted.
Socially gifted, exactly. Like it improves your social skills. It improves how you communicate. Just even as a pedicab driver, jiu-jitsu has helped my game pedicabbing like on an infinite level.
I bet you were like zooming when we came over here, and I was like, wow, that's impressive.
Well, we have motors and stuff, so that there's that. But I mean, in terms of like selling rides, communicating with people, in terms of like keeping your cool under pressure, like when there's like all these Uber drivers honking at you, you're owning the road like nothing phases you, because you're like, oh man, whatever, man. You get guys like Derek or guys like Curtis on top of you smashing you.
Yeah.
This is nothing. Like it doesn't mean anything. Like
The mild dehumanization like builds that confidence. Like
yeah, getting humiliated, getting physically humiliated by a grown man in a training environment, really it does in a weird way make you a lot more self-confident and more self-actualized when you communicate with people too, because you never know.
Yeah.
You become a lot more you become a lot more respectful and nice to people because of everything.
Yeah.
And you're super calm because you have to be calm. So it's good. It's an important thing.
True.
You know, one of the things too, like I noticed too, like if you try to be like a creep at a jiu-jitsu gym, you don't last.
You don't.
You don't last. Like you cannot be like, you will never last if you're a creep at the gym.
Those flags will go off like the second or within minutes of it happening. Like it does not go unseen.
Yeah.
You cannot get away with it.
You cannot be a creep. Like you cannot do any weird shit. So it's like, hey, if you're a female and you want to like meet good people, you want to get better at a sport, you want to defend yourself and do it in a safe environment, literally the safest place to go is a jiu-jitsu gym, because there's so many other testosterone-filled dudes that if they see shit like that happening, they will not stand for it.
They don't accept the disrespect.
It's not acceptable. They will not want to train with you. They'll not roll with you. You're not gonna, like, the guy won't get better. They won't feel welcome. And guys like that always wear their welcomes out in jiu-jitsu. Like
the ego.
Yeah.
It's an ego smasher.
It's a total ego smasher.
Yeah. It'll tell you like, hey, you're not that great. Here's what you need to work on in this area, whether it's on the mats or outside of it. It just like puts a lot in perspective. So.
It does. It really does. So how has like the pandemic affected you as an athlete?
As an athlete, so jiu-jitsu was absolutely without a doubt shut down in the traditional sense, like to where I could go to my gym for at least 2 months earlier in the year. And it was really stressful because, I mean, I had made it to where that was my outlet more so than weightlifting. And it was more of a comprehensive outlet. I could go see my friends and just really get steam off and just have fun and learn. Couldn't do it at all, you know, and I'm watching a lot of people who I know love training so much. Some people who did it 7 days a week versus me, it was like maybe 3 if I was lucky.
Yeah.
They had that taken away from them. And so that was a mental health outlet for a lot of people, I'm very sure. And having it just disrupted like that was difficult, but the second it came back, I started. I was like, I was so happy when I got that chance.
I was still trying to train during the pandemic. If anything, I probably trained more during the shutdowns because I had no like ability to do anything else, and I needed to do something to keep my sanity, because when I was stuck at home, like not knowing what was going to happen economically, not being able to make a living, not knowing anything,
seeing empty food stores,
seeing people wait online like you're in you know, a communist country. It's demoralizing. And then, you know, you have a significant other at home who doesn't really train and doesn't, like, you know, has been a lot more freaked out about this mentally than I was freaked out about this. Especially from the standpoint of the virus. Like, because honestly, my girl was really worried about COVID. Like, she still doesn't want to go to, like, you know, crowded places and eat crowded places or be around people, and we go and do stuff. And I'm worried about Bill Gates.
Yeah.
So it's like
that vaccine.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna talk about all that stuff right,
Yeah.
like very shortly.
Okay.
Because I think there's a lot of stuff that needs to be put in perspective, and there needs to be some healthy, like a healthy discussion, and that's kind of why I like wanted to start this, because there's so much bullshit going on from both sides, and there's a lot of jackassery.
Yeah.
And you need like a balanced discussion to understand like what's really at stake, what's really going to happen, what can you actually do, what can you realistically expect from all of this.
Yeah.
And people need to be calm during this stuff, because if you're not calm, you will lose it.
Yeah.
And if you're calm, you'll be okay. You'll make it through it, and you're probably going to make it through this thing better than you were before.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where a chaotic environment, right, is a breeding ground for opportunity.
Yeah, I feel that so much. Really do.
So you got to look at it from that perspective. It's like, dude, the worse things look on paper, the better your individual opportunity to crush it are going to be. And that's like, people got to understand that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even in the beginning of COVID, fucking market tanked. If you started buying stocks in April, you're doing fine.
Yes.
You know.
I had some that dipped
yeah.
and then they grew way bigger than they were before.
Yeah, exactly. I was buying Bitcoin with my like unemployment.
Smart. There you go. I invested in a monitor for work that I use every day with stimulus. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah, like I was buying Bitcoin. I was buying stocks, and I have like an account with like a family account, and I put money into that. That's done really well. The personal TD Ameritrade account, it's okay. It's not as good as I would like. I didn't make the best decisions, but I'm also, I think I'm still in the green. I'm still okay.
It's good that you're still investing. Like, some people are just so scared to do it this year, and I'm like, you don't have much to lose. Like, yeah.
I think you got to figure out what you're going to invest in. You got to figure out like what the future holds, depending on who wins and who loses. And there's got to be that discussion. I'm like, all right, how is this pandemic? How is everything that we're dealing with? Like, how is this going to affect you?
Yeah.
How is this election going to affect you? What are you going to be affected by? And there's got to be a discussion about that, because a lot of people are freaked out about this.
Yeah, hysteria.
On both sides. On both sides, people are freaking the fuck out. And I get it. I fully get it. Like if you hate Donald Trump, you're going to think that Donald Trump is undermining the Constitution and undermining democracy by trying to steal this election and not accepting the results. That can be really scary. And then if you're on the Trump side, you think that the Democratic Party and the DNC and like the deep state, so to speak, are all conspiring together to steal this election through mail-in ballots, which may or may not be valid.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of questions regarding election integrity. And man, I feel like no matter what happens, I'll tell you this, is that a lot less people are going to vote from here on in. Like the voting system is no longer going to be people are no longer going to trust the voting system.
The trust is gone. Yeah.
The trust is gone. And if you were and if you understand, historically speaking, the less amount of people that vote, the more likely that is to favor GOP and Republican candidates. So while you didn't get a full-blown red wave, you're setting conditions up for a red wave by what you're doing. So if you really were like a true Democrat and a true liberal, and you truly had left-leaning values, you would let someone in the Trump administration count those ballots, and you would make sure that this was as fair and transparent as possible.
Yeah. So we found these ballots stashed here, we found these stashed here. It's like, that's new for me.
It's sketchy. For sure. It's sketchy. But here's the other thing too, because I was asking questions about that. And the thing is that, like, most people who vote by mail are going to be Democrats. That's a thing.
Yeah.
And historically speaking, mail-in voting has never been like a huge problem in the past. But when you have millions of these ballots get sent to you, in states where it's too close to call, that changes the narrative. And it used to be that with mail-in ballots, you requested a mail-in ballot, and this way people knew you could check whether or not your ballot was submitted, and then you're good to go. But now people are just getting mail-in ballots delivered to them without having requested one.
Yeah, I mean, deceased people have received them.
Yeah, I've heard stories about that.
Pets have received them.
Yeah. That's where the problem is, and that's why you have to audit these ballots and make sure that this is a valid election. Because if you don't do that, no one's going to believe the integrity of this.
No.
Nobody is going to believe this. And then, Joe Biden is not going to do anything to really help the progressive left.
No.
He's going to do nothing, partially through the fact that he doesn't care, and partially through the fact that there is a majority. There's a conservative majority in the Senate and a conservative majority in the House.
Yes.
Which means that a lot of stuff that he might want to do and the left might want him to do, he just can't do it through no fault of his own.
He's he's too swayable.
He's very swayable.
Because when he speaks, I hear someone who read a Twitter feed kind of. Do you watch The Boys?
No.
Okay, they have a PR person. I hear when he speaks, I hear that PR person saying, "Hey Joe, these topics were trending and they're popular and the people care about this. Go, run with it." And he does, but not in a. It's not very calculated. It's not very universally appropriated. It's just kind of like to benefit whatever was tossed at him that day.
He doesn't have an original thought.
No.
That guy does not have an original thought. He's a total empty suit.
That sums it up perfectly.
And
yes.
Kamala is a giant opportunist. And
absolutely. Ooh.
It creates a recipe for danger. But here's the other thing, right? So people don't get free. Like if you're on the right, not to get freaked out by it.
Yeah.
You got a majority in the Senate. You got a majority in the Supreme Court. You're not losing your guns.
No.
You're gonna keep your guns. You're gonna keep your gun. You're gonna keep your guns, like almost certainly. So right now, if you own a gun store, this is literally a gun store owner's wet dream. Like no lie, like Michael Cargill is probably like licking his chops right now at these results. He's loving it.
He's ready.
He's better buy me some Fogo.
Yeah.
I hope you heard that, Cargill. You better buy me Fogo, motherfucker. All that money you're making from all these freaked out people.
It amazes me how many people are new gun owners.
Maybe he'll sponsor my podcast too. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Because I know you can afford to. I know for a fact you can afford to sponsor me. So we can. I should have a talk with him and see if he's going to want to do that. But anyway, that's the other thing too, is that you're going to keep your Second Amendment rights. The tax plan is probably going to stay the same because you need a Senate to override a lot of, right? Like you need the Senate to like override the Trump tax plan.
Yeah.
So like these companies are still going to get the same tax breaks, which means markets should probably actually be really good under Biden. Maybe even more so because he's going to just let China walk all over him. So all these companies, which is horrible for everyday people, but if you're like buying stock in like Apple or any of these tech companies, like these tech companies are I need to actually look into buying something
Apple
right now.
like double and a half. It was crazy.
They didn't double, they went up a lot in the past couple days. But like Apple, Microsoft, possibly Facebook, like Square, all these companies, it might be a good time to look into buying all of those and not like doing like options. Just hold on to it. Just keep buying it incrementally and hold on to it and hold on to it and hold on to it, because a lot of these companies are probably going to do better as a result of Biden being president. Problem is, everyday working people who live in like middle America are going to get reamed by this.
Yes.
And we're not going to be we need to, especially after this COVID stuff, we need to like start making more products in America. And if Biden winds up winning this thing, which you don't even know if he will, because Donald Trump could still contest this election and he has a very viable case.
Yeah.
But if Biden wins, we're not going to be an independently manufacturing country, and that's going to be bad. And I know this is like a giant rant here, but in 4 years from now, even in 2 years from now, you're not going to see very much progressivism come out of the Biden administration, through both the fact that Biden stands for nothing and the fact that Republicans are going to obstruct everything.
Yes.
And so the left is going to be disenfranchised as a result of that, through by default. And guess what they're not going to do 4 years from now? Vote.
No. They're kind of built on pandering.
Yeah,
and that's going to die.
They're not
out.
going to. They are very much likely not going to vote unless we manufacture some more civil unrest and people are still falling for it. But it seems unlikely that the left is going to want to vote for the same candidate who did nothing for them.
Exactly.
Which is like why they didn't vote for Hillary and all that stuff. Like, because a lot of these people on the left were like, hey, we're voting because we're going to push Biden left. We're confident in that. And once they realize that it's not going to happen, they won't vote for him.
Yeah.
And then, hey, a real fascist might come along 4 years from now and he's got a much better chance of getting elected because of these circumstances.
Yeah.
It's that's my
The hysteria has really just made it, like you said, to where he doesn't have like convictions, and like you said, the Senate is not really going to stoop to that. So.
No, they're not going to do anything. It's going to be a standstill. But for markets, that's actually, like, historically speaking, that's really good for markets when you have gridlock in government, because that means that no changes can make it, and it just becomes business as usual for these companies. So
yes.
It's actually good for markets when this stuff happens.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, at least you're not going to go broke as a result of this. But this is not good for the country. It's not good for our voting like the voter integrity as a whole is gonna go to complete shit.
Yes.
No matter who wins, and that's how you start destroying countries, and that's how you start creating real fascism, and that's dangerous.
That is dangerous.
That's extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
And also, if Trump isn't gonna go away, it's not like Donald Trump's gonna go away.
No.
Like, he's more popular than ever. Even if he loses, there are counties like that the only group of people that Donald Trump actually lost voters in was white males.
It's that white guilt.
Well, it's older white males too. Like old white males, like were the only people.
Yeah.
Or old white people in general. Yeah. But like Donald Trump gained ground pretty substantially with every other group.
He did, blacks and Latinos especially. Just reading that, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't think that that's like gonna keep becoming a tipping point? Like that's just gonna keep going
huge.
further and further and further and further. And even if Trump loses, like there's a lot of conditions in play, and he's legally allowed to run in 2024.
Yeah.
If that guy can just that guy has so much money, that guy has so many resources. There are people that are so fanatically in love with Trump, and they might even be more so in love with him after all this shit, that he could just start holding rallies now for the next 4 years.
He converted fanatical haters of him to vote for him this year because they didn't like what Biden had to offer so much.
Or they hated these shutdowns so much that people, and that's the next point. You are one of those people.
Oh, yeah. I got furloughed. My husband got furloughed temporarily, too. And because of this, we were approved to close on a house in early April. And actually less than 48 hours before we were supposed to get the keys, take our new homeowner picture, they told us, yeah, you've both been furloughed and we can't do it. So our dreams of moving to Lockhart, the house that we picked.
Was it Lockhart?
It was Lockhart.
Oh, shit. I thought it was like in Austin.
No, it was outside of Austin because Austin's getting too
expensive.
pricey.
Yeah.
So we found an affordable house in Lockhart, and we were so excited. The emotions from that were so raw when it happened, and I didn't even have jiu-jitsu to help cope with it, like you were saying earlier. Like, people really need that. And we didn't know what the better side of that would be, but we're okay. We're moving to we're in Smithville, and things are good. So it doesn't have to be the end of the world, but yeah.
Yeah, me and Vanessa, we got to check out that new spot.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I hear you guys brew your own breweries too.
We do. We brew our own beer.
Forgot about that.
We have a garden.
Yeah.
We're pretty self-sufficient. Like, we have a shooting range out there.
Well, oh, dude, yeah, we're definitely gonna go out there. Of course.
Yeah.
We
Come
should,
out.
Yeah, I would love to. You have a shooting range out
Absolutely,
there?
we do. We have
Yeah,
donkeys. We have a shooting range. We've got like all this stuff.
That's America. You literally, you're in America.
We are being Americans. Yes.
You're in America. I'm still in China.
I noticed that when I drive through Austin now, I get like this wave of dread, and I'm like, oh.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad, but it's not like this is not a good trajectory, and we got to be mindful.
It's not the same Austin I fell in love with in 2010.
100%. But also, everybody always falls in love with a place when they first move somewhere, and love always fades.
Yeah.
So there's that. People got to be cognizant of that. But anyway, you voted for Donnie T.
I did.
So what made you and were you a Trump supporter in 2016? Like, what was
No. Oh my God. So 2016, I was basically raised with the idea that black people have to be Democrat. There's no alternative for black people. So years go by. I had my first gun at age 11. My father bought it for me. My parents are veterans.
Yeah.
I've grown up going to my friends' houses who also had veteran parents, who had police parents. I love the military. I love police. And so this year put into perspective for me that there's no room for me at that Democratic table. As a black woman who's a gun supporter and who loves the military and the police, I go against everything that's being sold to me right now.
Because you have family and whatnot who are in both positions, so you see it from a different perspective.
I do, yeah. My dad's even a legal immigrant, so I'm on the side of just just how things should go. Like,
I get it. Okay. And I want to talk about police reform because you could love the police and also understand that there's some shit that needs to
there's
change.
some reform that needs to happen,
like immediately.
absolutely.
And these departments need to enact these reforms to get their funding back. I think.
I agree
for
with
certain
you.
things.
We need to give them that chance instead of
yeah.
screaming.
But they
slurs at
they
them.
have to. There's certain forms that need to be enacted. And when I was running for city council, I don't know if you saw my platform at all. Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the reforms I was talking about is the fact that you need to have jiu-jitsu training needs to be mandatory.
100%.
And you should be at least a blue belt before you become a cop, and you have to train consistently either with a bunch of people at the academy.
I agree with this.
Or at like an actual gym that offers some kind of subsidy to law enforcement.
It should be mandatory to pass. My friend who's a brown belt, Janae Cox, she actually works she works with TXDPS training recruits, and that's a program that they really want to grow and I think is so valuable, so beneficial. Get these recruits grappling. They have those open mats for LEOs.
Yeah.
But
how many people actually go?
A good amount, but they make it blue belt and up. So, it's like as many people, like if you want cops training with white belts, I mean, it's kind of like when they're wrestling an unarmed person anyway. But
they should train with white belts because that's who you're going to have to control.
That's the raw strength,
and you also have to actually know how to control somebody like that safely without hurting them. Like you should, the fact that it's only blue belt and above, I didn't know that, but that's not good. They should let anybody.
There could be some
there.
discussion about that
They
because
have
I
to
agree
have
with
white,
you.
Yeah, they have to have white belts there because. First of all, those white belts become better training with better people.
They do.
And they get a resource to understand how effective this is, and they can actually start going to another gym.
Yeah, I mean, when you know how this works, you don't have a hatred towards chokeholds and other things like that. Like, I saw that in the media, and I'm like, I saw a 5'2" female cop take down 2 people with her bare hands using jiu-jitsu. She got back control on one guy, and then she took his girlfriend down and stacked them on top of each other. She didn't draw a gun or a taser once. That is what I want to see more funded. Like
exactly, but that has to be a thing, and they have to agree to it. And Brazilian jiu-jitsu training needs to be mandatory if you're a police officer. Like
yes.
And it's not going to solve a lot. It's not going to solve all the problems. There's still a lot of stuff that I don't know to have any clue what it's like to be a police officer and all the stressful stuff they have to deal with. But at the very least, you'll be better at managing that stress, and you'll be better at subduing a suspect without hurting them.
Calmness, confidence.
Yeah. De-escalation.
Mm-hmm.
No better way to de-escalate than, hey, man, if you got like a 200-pound monster brown belt on top of you in side control, and you could be calm under that situation, you could be calm talking down like some suspect who's, a little excited, maybe did too many drugs, or you know what I mean? Like you'll be better at talking certain people down that you otherwise wouldn't.
Resolution.
You'll have much better conflict resolution. You'll be less likely to feel the need to draw your gun. 100%. They also need to have EMT basic certifications.
Yes, I think that there should be a diverse range of what they are trained for when they show up on site, whether they're dealing with a mentally ill subject that's being called on, someone who's violent, just all these things. There's just a cross pollination that should be interjected, kind of like how other countries do. They focus on de-escalation tactics. I'm not saying they don't do it here, but like you said, reform.
They could do better.
Reform, they could do better. Maybe a little bit longer training. If you see someone who's struggling with those de-escalation naturally, I don't know, work on that. But there's a chance for the police. Like I would never want to give up on that system. And
no, you never should. But at the same time, though, if these guys want to get their funding back, like they have to agree to that. That's what I think. Like if I were a city council, if I were a city official, and I was in charge of the budget, right? Hey man, we should give you your funding back. What we did was pretty irresponsible with how we defunded.
Yes.
Right. From a number of standpoints, right? But at the same time, you can't let these people just walk all over you and operate with impunity too. And there have to be rules for how you give them the money back. Another thing too is that you need independent review boards for like misconduct, and it should be people who are like objective. It shouldn't be like super Blue Lives Matter folks, and it shouldn't be your like ultra left-wing community activists. Like they should not be on that board. Neither of those people. It should be like people like you and me to like look at things objectively and say, hey, the cop was justified in their action in this situation.
Oh, absolutely.
And the cop was not in this situation. And you should be able to recommend to the DA if a charge gets filed, like what to charge the person with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like, look, a lot of times they make mistakes of overcharging cops, and then they go free, and that's a problem, right? So if you want true accountability, you got to charge someone with what you think they are actually guilty of and what you think they will be guilty of in a court of law, so that accountability and justice do get served.
I think that could be increased overall. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also, the money, if there's a lawsuit for like police brutality and whatnot, that should come out of the pension fund.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that.
And you should be a lot. And my buddy Casey, who I dropped out to endorse, said that the cops should have personal liability insurance. They should be required to take out personal liability insurance for when stuff like this happens.
See, this is good stuff. That's good. That's great. I'd pay you extra for that.
That's good. Yeah. But like they have to agree to do this stuff, and if they want their funding back, there has to still be accountability. And you could love, and people don't understand too that like you can love love law enforcement and like have like an insane amount of respect for police officers and law enforcement while also making them have to be accountable. Like, you know what I mean? Like you love your best friends and you have standards for how they behave.
You do.
Right?
You wouldn't let them just, I'm not saying that they walk all over people. That's not what I'm trying to say. But the accountability aspect, you can love something and want it to do better.
Well, I know, and make them do better and say you have to do better. Like we love you and we like respect you and what you guys are awesome, most of y'all. But you have to be accountable and we have to hold you accountable and do it right. Like there's something there's a thing that people need to understand, and you can't like separate the two. That's my take on it. Like when I was at Eastside Elite, like I loved all my teammates. You know what I mean? Felt like we were brothers, but at the same time, it's like if you weren't training hard and if you weren't offering value and you weren't helping them get better. You know, how much do you really love them if you're not going to help, right? Like, you know, you can't love someone that does you can't love someone that doesn't love you back. And if you're a member of the community, you can't really love your police officers if the police officers don't love protecting the community and helping the community. So it's both ways, and you got to make sure that they're accountable to actually serve and protect the community meaningfully. And if they're not, there should be a board to make it so that those people are weeded out and shouldn't be the ones doing this job.
Just held genuinely accountable.
That's it. But that's an important discussion that we all got to have, right? And I think a lot of people are so polarized by that.
Oh, yeah.
But if you really sit down and have this conversation, like you talk to some if like some BLM activists came down and sat with us and talked to us, they'd probably like agree with 99% of what we said.
I want to
you know
talk
what I mean?
to
Like
someone
they'd
like
all
that,
be
but they won't talk. They just have thrown names and then yeeted out of the conversation.
You think so though? Like how do you broach the subject, and how many BLM people have you actually talked to?
So it would be better if I had done it under the context of like this, like sitting like face to face, but in reality it's just, you know, it's all been through social media via people I know or just
arguing.
Otherwise
Arguing. And whenever people
pointless
argue on
arguing.
Facebook, nobody's ever come anyway. No one's like, hey man, like this is what we got to do, but I don't think that this is the right solution. Here's a lot of times people say don't defund or defund, right? And then nobody ever explains like why you should do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
If you say, hey, don't defund, here's why, and I were to say these explanations, I don't see anybody giving me hate for anything that I said at all.
Yeah.
Because it's not hateful. These are positive reforms.
That's
it's just
not
a different
hateful.
outside
It's
the
pragmatic.
box. Yeah, it's pragmatic and it's practical, and it's empathetic to both sides. And people need empathy. Both sides need genuine empathy right now.
Both.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, like that. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like everybody needs empathy, and and that's also too why with this podcast I'm trying to get everybody on this. Like I had a guy from Infowars.
Yeah.
And then I had John Bound come on and talk to me. And then I had like 2 liberal socialists back to back right afterwards because
How
I'm like,
was that?
It was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Because you had a real genuine conversation.
It was fine. I mean, I'll send it to you. Like I had this lady Morgan Witch who's running for city council in District 7, and there's stuff we agreed on, stuff we disagreed on. I think I wish she and she lost her race, right? And she was awesome for even coming out and doing this and talking to me on a pedicab.
That is really cool.
My one thing is I wish that she were to like I felt like she could have let her guard down a little more. But at the same time, you're running for office. It's hard.
That is hard. You have like so many eyes on you.
There's a lot of eyes on you. I think that if she like really let loose and just like went deep about what she wanted to do, that would have been like it was a very good episode, but it could have been like
she just had that reserve.
It could have been like a monster episode.
She's got to protect her interests, but I totally understand you. Like that unleashed perspective would
just
be
let
really
it all
nice.
out.
Yeah,
I should hit all these people up and just try to get them back. Just I'm like, hey, you want to come back? Like now we're really like you don't have nothing to lose now.
Have
just
people
go
back.
Yeah, you got to have some return guests right now. Like you're not running now, so let's go share with the class how you really feel.
Yeah. How was that experience for you? Like
it's fine. Yeah, exactly. But what I was saying is that then I had my buddy Glenn who trains at 10th Planet, who's like super like left-wing socialist activist, but he's like practical and reasonable, and we had a discussion, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. But that's what I'm saying is I immediately want to always have a balance of guests.
Yeah.
Because that's how you bridge the gap is you got to be calm and you got to actually talk to people because I really feel like there's an agenda to destroy this country. And the way that they're destroying this country, they can't destroy us militarily, but they can destroy us by getting to destroy each other. So like the best way to actually save America is to go and talk out a lot of problems, so we're like actually realize that we're on board with a lot of stuff.
Help each other out of the barrel.
Yeah,
Don't
like
fight
and
yeah.
that's why you got to have all guests.
Yeah.
Because that's the most American thing to do right now is that talk to everybody.
Very much so.
But we keep getting sidetracked. So like when did you like say, hey, I'm jumping on this Trump train? Like when did that like start?
It was so unofficial that it almost makes me laugh. So I voted for him. I didn't tell anyone in my family because I knew.
Oh, you did in 2016?
No, I did it in 2016.
You did it? You did?
Because
or you didn't?
I did not in 2016 because
You
I was
didn't, right?
still
Okay.
roped into you're black, you have to vote this way.
Did you vote for Hillary?
I did not want to, but I did.
You did it? Okay. I'm not mad or I'm judging you. I voted for Sanders.
Yeah.
And I voted for Sanders in 2022. I have no shame in it. But yeah.
Yeah, it's like there shouldn't be shame about voting.
Yeah,
it's so weird.
But tell me more about this. Like, so
Yeah.
tell me how it
So
all.
the 2016 happened, and I'm kind of on that aspect of the whatever algorithm for my phone where I'm getting all the negative info about Trump, right? And then the whole, if you support him, you're complicit in these ideologies. And I thought that was really extreme. I have friends and family friends who voted for him, and I was like, these are not people I want to get rid of at all. Let me talk to them if I really feel that bothered. So I did. I talked to like one of my friend's moms, and she just kind of explained like, well, I mean, this is what works for our family. And I was like, okay, like I would never disrespect that. I talked to friends, I talked to people at 10th Planet, and they all opened my eyes to like, look, it's just, don't get roped into identity politics. Like, whoever you're voting for, you have led yourself to the decisions to make that choice as an American, as a legal voter. Like, no one should crap on you for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just talking to those people, like kind of seeing through it and seeing like Trump is not so much of like a hate. I don't know. I just didn't really, I had to disillusion from everything I was fed and everything I was forced to believe and forced to do. And even this year I didn't tell my parents who I voted for, but the way I said inadvertently is because I made that rash guard. And it's funny, I didn't even say like, oh, I voted for Trump. I made merchandise for people who would want to wear it. I mean, the hats exist. So I saw that the hats existed. I made a rash guard, and then my inbox is a barrage of calling me a traitor and a sellout, and I mean, my marriage was brought up. I'm in an interracial marriage, and that was used as like, oh, you don't have anything to offer. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense, right? Because if you really want equality, you should also be able to marry whoever you want, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm like, these people
Yeah.
want to fight racism, but then call a woman, I can't repeat the terms, but like call racial slurs to someone who is married to someone regardless of identity. It just,
See, my girlfriend's Hispanic, right? Like, who cares? Like,
yeah.
like nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Yeah. Like, but I don't know. It was weird. I just kind of saw like a hypocrisy in the left being like, no, we're the giving, we're the tolerant, we're the accepting, we're the non-racist party. And I was like, I don't see proof of that anymore at all.
Yeah. And I think COVID changed a lot of people's perspectives too, because I was a little worried about like fascism.
Yeah, I was too. Yeah,
Yeah, I was worried. I was like this. I was when Trump got elected the first time. I was a little scared.
I was scared too.
I was scared.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then some of the stuff he tweets a lot of shit. Sometimes the sources, the things he tweets that are not the most credible.
Yeah.
I think that his rhetoric does inflame division amongst people.
It does.
I think
It shouldn't as much, but it does.
Yeah, but it does. It does. And his actions are not as bad as his rhetoric.
Yeah.
I also, but anyway, like and look, I'm a Jew also, right? So I was worried. I was like, oh shit, you're gonna embolden Nazis and white supremacists. The white supremacists, they don't even think I'm white. I got a Star of David tattoo on my shoulder and whatever, right? Like, I'm a Jew, and I have family that are Jews. I have family that live in Israel and all this stuff, right? And I'm like, I've noticed no like anti-Semitism at all, really, since like I've
I didn't
none
notice
of
any
that.
hate towards black people when he got elected. I thought I was gonna walk outside and there's gonna be people screaming at me and mad, but no, none of
Nobody
that
happened. None of that happened, right?
All the angry screams came from people who look exactly like me. Like what?
Yeah. And also, when the pandemic hit, like, if there was any opportunity to actually be a fascist, this pandemic was literally the
Would've been
golden
perfect.
opportunity to actually be a fascist by telling everyone they have to lock down and by declaring martial law, by doing all types of horrible dictatorial stuff. Because a lot of other government officials were doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Trump didn't. He left it up to the states, and then everybody criticized him because a bunch of people died from it, which is bad. And he probably could have handled this better. He probably shouldn't have fired his pandemic response team. That was bad.
Yeah.
Right? You had the genome for the virus. You should have been making better preparations for this virus during this whole process. You talked a whole bunch about not trusting the WHO and whatever. Like, well, if that's the case, then why weren't you preparing
Yeah.
when the WHO was telling you something different?
It's
you
very
know,
interesting,
So
yeah.
you didn't prepare well in terms of hospital capacity and doing things like that. Your travel ban from China literally let 40,000 people come in from China anyway. Didn't do anything. Did really next to nothing. It was lip service.
Yeah.
But the fact is, you're not a fascist because you didn't lock people down during this pandemic when you
Yeah.
had every opportunity to do that.
And execute martial law and all that.
Yeah. And even when these protests were happening, he threatened to send in the military, but he didn't really do that. Like he didn't send in the National Guard unless people requested that he send that stuff in. So it's like those actions kind of show that that's like the opposite of a fascist, right?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like, especially during an election. If you were a true fascist, you could have just declared martial law and not let this election happen or done a bunch of stuff to do that. That didn't really happen. So my fears of Trump being an actual fascist kind of dissipated
Yes.
a lot
was
as a
thinking that
result
word
of
too.
COVID. If you want to know my real opinion, my fears of fascism dissipated. I think there are other concerns with Donald Trump, in terms of responding to pandemics. And the fact that everything is so deregulated, which is great right now, but it might create a disastrous real market consequence later on in the future. There could be some problem that because his deregulations are like Bush on steroids, and we all know how that turned out, right? So there is stuff like that that you got to worry about. But in terms of fascism,
I don't worry about it with him.
I don't worry about it.
It was proven he's not principled enough to be a fascist. I don't mean that as an insult. He's not. There's some extremism that's kind of lacking there to put him in the fascist territory. So
yeah, I'm not worried. I'm not worried about that.
No.
But I think how his response just most recently, I know, like you said, you were spot on with how the COVID situation was handled. I just see from him a care for America getting back, being better. I don't see, Joe Biden literally made the comment of, we're in for a dark winter. We're in for darkness. It's going to be real dark and dismal. And I was like, that's not the right thing to say or do at this moment.
Yeah, that inflames fear, and that's really divisive and negative, and I don't understand how anybody could support that.
No.
That being said, though, you got a red Senate and a red Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it's going to be pretty hard for all the stuff that you're afraid of to actually come true.
Mm-hmm.
His tax plan's going to say the same. It seems like it'll be a lot more difficult to lock down the country. Hopefully, a lot of other pockets that didn't vote red wound up voting red. Texas stayed red, so it might. It's going to be and even the Republicans, I think they gained ground in the House. They didn't win the House. They don't have the majority, but they gained ground.
They did.
In the House.
It was a lot closer.
And in a lot of these states where Trump, even if he loses, half of those states are literally divided in two. So to have those states try shutting down, it would be really difficult. It'll be the circumstances and the situation at play to actually do another shutdown seem a lot more difficult than they would have, especially after this election is over with, because they weren't banking on that. They were not banking on all of these states being so close and all of these GOP voters coming out of nowhere. They were they must be that out of touch to not understand that.
Though the Democrats felt entitled to the black vote, and it really showed this year.
That you're not.
Yeah.
I mean, they still got the black vote, but Trump got more black voters than any other president since Abraham Lincoln?
It was a lot.
That, yeah,
Not only that, but they specifically mined
or since the 1960s or something like that.
It had to have been. Yeah.
Not Abraham Lincoln, but since the 60s. Yeah.
They were specifically mining the numbers to find out who was against him and then voted for him this year, and that shows so much
just not even from the 4 years, because I didn't come to point A to point B in that 4 years. It was this year when I saw how things were handled and how each side was acting.
Yeah, I was not. Yeah. And I'm not going to talk about who I voted for, but I was man, I was going to be left out of it. But like my opinion on this guy changed a lot because of this, and overall, my opinion actually probably changed for the better as a result of the fact that you didn't like lock us down, and I felt as though like my like liberties were still in play.
Yeah.
I think there are other social things that he has to work on a little bit more. He has to maybe work on how he communicates with people, and I think that if you actually are like a racist and a white supremacist, you could definitely feel emboldened by some of the shit that Trump says.
You could feel galvanized and emboldened. However, he made some improvement in an area I was not expecting this year, and that was sitting down and offering an olive branch to groups that, I mean, even the Democratic Party wouldn't sit down with.
Well, like the Platinum Plan and stuff?
The Platinum Plan, not only that, but the funding for historically black colleges and universities, apparently that was so difficult to attain year by year, and these colleges were stepping up and trying to make it happen. And Trump was like, all right, we'll sign the bill. So that willingness, when before, he had communicated and he had done his press conferences in a way that really, he just would storm off stage, right?
Yeah.
And so I looked at that and I took that as a comprehensive analysis of his character, when in reality, he's just a different person I don't think anyone will understand. So that willingness to sit down, talk with those groups, even, clemency offered to some people with sentences, the money towards HBCUs, I think those are all positive steps in the right direction the Democrats weren't even like willing to do. And that was a boss move to take it from them.
That was a good move. And then also the Platinum Plan, it's a good plan. Ultimately there's got to be an accountability to implement that, because you could have just been saying that because you want to get votes. So there still has to be an accountability to make sure he actually implements that. And even like Biden, let's say Biden wins, right? There's got to be action on Biden to implement a plan similar to that.
Yeah.
So especially when you look at all the numbers, there's a lot to do. Have you gotten hate from family as a result of all this stuff?
Ooh, 100%. So I won't name the family member who saw my MAGA rash guard, but she didn't ask me what I was doing. I was A, making mercantile humor, and B, I'm a small business. I'm trying to make money during a pandemic.
Yeah, why not, right? Yeah.
Why not? And I thought, I woke up, I Googled MAGA rash guard. There wasn't something like I was going to make. I made it. And her response made it feel like I'm probably not invited to family anything in that part of the country for a while. I feel like I was slandered maybe at the dinner table. Like it was that bad that I was like, whoa. I mean, the words, if we're done after this election, came from her. And I was like, whoa. I mean, geez, I shared a piece of merchandise that I made. I don't get it.
Yeah, and also if you're going to have like an increasing number of like minority voters voting for you, you literally like can't be a racist because these people are all supporting you. So now you're letting down your voting group. So like it changes how you're gonna actually do policies.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that and I mean, I don't think I lost like. The followers are so irrelevant, but just like 40, and I was able to see who they all were, and it was funny, and none of them surprised me when they unfollowed, because they were people that were. I'm not going to call anyone out name by name. It's just I saw some really intense statuses of white people should be doing this, white people should be doing that. And I'm like, that seems kind of hateful. Like, why fight hate with hate? That's not justified.
I think at the end of the day, people just need to be more empathetic towards one another and try to, like, figure out, like, hey, if you're doing well for yourself, figure out how you can give it back. Like, it's just, and that's just a tenet to being successful. Like, that's like a karmic consequence. Like, if you're doing well and you see, like, some other group is, like, a little bit more disenfranchised, then you, like, well, figure out an actionable, common sense way to be helpful. Yeah. Because it's good for you, and it brings good things out into the universe. So like that's what I think people should do. It's just not phrased well. Everything's phrased negatively, and it puts people against each other. And that's what's needs to be like fixed and addressed. That's my take on it. Yeah,
I agree. I was accused of sharing hate speech. I'm like, I don't see how that's hate speech, but okay.
No, I understand. Man, I'm trying to think about what else we're going to say. So there's some family backlash. I'm sure you lost some friends because of it.
100%.
That kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But it doesn't and it doesn't seem like, just from talking to you, it doesn't seem like you're like really even involved with Trumpism at all.
Not hardcore Trumpism.
Yeah,
no.
like none of this stuff is because you could and here's another thing too. You could honestly think that Donald Trump is a better choice than Joe Biden, and there are a lot of very logical and very legitimate reasons to think that, especially now. In 2016, it's different. In 2016,
it was so different.
In 2016, that's not
Yeah.
true. You probably people were more comfortable to want to go off and call you a bigot and
Yeah.
whatnot if you were like super supporting Trump in 2016. And chances are you probably were a little odd and a little weird, and like the reason behind supporting Trump in 2016 was not like you didn't have as well of a thought out logical thing of reasoning.
I
right?
didn't.
Right.
no.
But now in 2020, like I could make a bullet point of reason. Like if you're a Trump supporter, you can make a bullet point of reasons as to why you think Trump's a better choice, and none of them has to do with perpetuating hate or division.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah.
So it's like, hey, the stock market went up. My 401k was doing really well. I was making really good investments. I improved my position in life because of the deregulation. I have family in the military. We haven't started a new foreign war. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't, but that's just a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Right.
We've lived through 4 years of this,
Yeah,
and it was
yeah.
not as terrible as people.
You didn't want to like lock me down and strip me of my rights in the name of a virus.
You wanted me to get back to what I was doing as
Yeah.
safely as possible.
Yeah, you didn't want me to do that. You didn't want to do that, right? My gas prices are like 50% lower. These past 4 years, my gas prices have been really low. I've been able to like go camping more. I've been able to go fishing more. I've been able to like take decompression trips to the country to feel better and clear my head and be in a better headspace where I can communicate with people effectively.
Yeah.
Because gas prices are cheaper. So like and then if you live in a rural part of the country and you have to work in Austin or work in the city, it makes it a lot easier for you. It makes it a lot easier for you and middle class families to be able to live comfortably and live affordability, so it helps with the like income inequality.
Yes.
So like all of these factors like are legitimate reasons as to why somebody would vote, and then people are trying to say, oh yeah, I guess 50% of the country they're still racist and they're bigots, and I'm like no. And when you paint people like that, it just makes people more against you, and you have to understand that there are legitimate and justifiable reasons why you made that decision. And if you really want these people to vote Democrat, the Democrats have to do a much better job
They have to do
of
way
catering
better.
and empathizing and offering policies that actually help people in those areas, which they don't do.
Yeah, they're like that friend that has an MLM, and every 4 years they come and just try to sell you on it, even if you're like, no, like you're not. They just don't know. They don't know how to genuinely connect anymore. It was all these trigger words being thrown out this year, and they fell where they did. And
yeah, it's wrong. I don't like it. And I have a lot of like super democratic, like ultra liberal friends that if I said this to them, they're like, yeah, man, we agree with you, dude. Like that's where we got to do better. We're fucking up on this. But yeah, you have to you have to actually empathize and show people why your policies are going to help them and be involved. Like people in the conservatives in red states, right? Like the conservative officials, they're involved. Like they know people in those like in those small towns, in those small if there's a district made up of a bunch of small towns, that guy's like he's going to church with them. He's involved. Like they know, they all know him. They all know him. You know what I mean? The people that they know him. They're more likely to actually know him. That person is empathetic and understanding of the circumstance. Like the circumstances of somebody living and the needs of somebody living in a big city are going to be different than the needs of somebody living in the country. So if Democrats want to start getting votes from people who live in the country and live in the suburbs and live in rural areas, you need to start figuring out a way to meet their needs.
yeah,
That you have to figure out a way to meet their needs. And this Green New Deal stuff, hey man, I'm not against the Green New Deal, but you got to figure out a way to like pay these oil field workers, pay these people that are going to plant trees and build solar panels and have these green jobs. You got to figure out a way to pay them the same as the oil field workers.
Oh, yeah.
Because if a Democrat comes in and say, hey man, we got these new green jobs that are going to pay you $80K a year, and we're going to train you, and this is what you need to do, the only people that are going to have problems with it are the heads of Kinder Morgan and Exxon and the big companies.
Yeah.
But like an everyday oil field worker is going to not have a problem with that. They're going to be fine. And that's why a lot of people in rural America voted for Bernie Sanders compared to like Biden or compared to Hillary Clinton, because Bernie Sanders, while you don't agree with everything, he at least was coming to people and talking to people on their level as to how he can make their life better. He's like, hey man, I just want you to be able to go to a doctor. You know,
Yeah,
he was
he
like, hey, we
presented
gotta.
a lot of
He tried to present solutions that were different.
He didn't get flowery talk. It was like, this
No.
is what we have to do. We're gonna do it. Like,
But that's why people voted for him in those areas. And so if you're gonna be a Democrat, right, you have to, like, you know, a whole large part of the country. If you look at the number of precincts that voted, an overwhelming number of precincts. If you did it by precincts, an overwhelming number of precincts in America voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah, the charts were.
Yeah.
they're
And you know, if you really want to change that, you have to go into those areas and really communicate with those people genuinely and show, like, offer solutions that will show that that will help them improve their lives.
Yeah, ask them what they want.
Yeah, and if you don't do that, you're going to get more of this. And in 2 more years, when Biden does absolutely nothing, which he will do nothing, when Biden does nothing,
Yeah.
and all this voter disenfranchisement is already occurred, combined with the fact that Biden's done nothing, and the liberal disenfranchisement, you're gonna pave the way for real fascism. So if you really want to, like, stop that, you gotta fix this. You gotta empathize with people.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, if you really want to get rid of Donald Trump, maybe the best thing to do is to just have him be president for 4 more years, because otherwise you're going to see him do rallies for 4 years. He has a very real possibility of running again, which he's legally allowed to do.
Mm-hmm.
He also has an extremely greater possibility of winning.
And he
so
can
instead
fund
of
his
4
own.
and instead of 4 years of Trump, guess what? You're going to now have 8 more years of Trump.
Yeah.
So, you know, just
let it happen.
maybe the best move, like, if you really want to get rid of this guy, is to just bite the bullet for 4 more years and then improve how you communicate with voters as a Democrat. Like, my 2 cents. That's really what I think.
I've been thinking about that too. There's definitely a disconnect, obviously, from the swayage of votes they feel entitled to. I kind of, that was just the biggest thing, was the entitlement. So, like, we're automatically going to get this population's vote, and I'm like, not 2020, not after all this.
Yeah, the county in El Paso, near Star County, got like 48% Trump. You know what I mean? Like, the county's like a border town got like 48% for Trump in Texas. Like,
yeah, that's and 4 years ago, not even the same.
Exactly. So, I mean, a lot of this is we're heading towards a very interesting pivotal turning point.
Yeah.
But one, you know, and a lot of people are very scared about what's happening, but I want this to be more of a comforting, like, type of podcast, because a lot of things that people are going to be scared of, especially if you're, like, conservative, is a lot less likely to happen because of the makeup of the Senate. So you're probably, most likely, chances are you're probably going to just see a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, I mean, people are acting like it'll be life or death after this.
You're going to see a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah.
And then you're going to see a lot of voter disenfranchisement, which could lead to something really bad down the road. But I think these next couple of years, unless they do another shutdown, but people are so fucking against that shit.
Yeah.
Unless they do that, you're just going to see an abundance of nothingness. You're going to see nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see Joe Biden doing nothing, and that's it. Nothing's going to happen. And people are going to be freaked out at each other. And then, you know, because Joe Biden's doing nothing, the progressives aren't going to vote. They're going to be less likely to vote for their Democratic candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, the people on the right are going to be fucking furious about what happened, and they're going to go out and really stick it to people. So
it'll work itself out.
That's what's going to happen. So
you're right. There does need to be some sort of talk of, like, there's a calm after storm. There really is. I saw some memes calling that attitude privileged and, like, saying you're an asshole if you are looking forward optimistically after this. And I'm like, why?
What? Where did you hear that from?
No, like I said, I just saw posts, like, from people I know sharing, like, having a flippant attitude about the result of the election is privileged and disrespectful. And I'm like, it's just knowing, like, you live in America, you voted, it's going to work itself out, like you said. Like,
something will work itself out somehow.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's like these people, they only really, they don't want you to have an opinion. They want you to have their opinion. They're really saying, if you don't have my opinion on this election,
then you're not
privileged
acceptable in
and you're
my
not
life
acceptable and you're not
anymore.
this and that. Yeah, and that's wrong. And that's
that can buy to that.
very that's divisive, and that like also creates more Trumpism. So that's actually not the right approach.
No.
But who knows? Maybe I'm just saying that because I'm privileged. Who the fuck knows, Jewel? Who the hell knows? Anyway, This has been an all-new episode of Convos on the Pedicab. Jewel, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate this.
you.
She drove all the way from Smithville to hang out with me on a pedicab, so that really means a lot. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.